welcome to another episode of the Grueling Truth Inside Boxing Weekly Show. I'm your host, Mike Goodpaster, and I want to welcome in my co-host, Jeremiah Preisser.
Good evening, Mike. How you doing? Good to be here. Always glad to be here.
Doing great. We actually got to see some good fights this weekend. We got one big fight coming up this next weekend. Let's start off with Josh Warrington, who knocked out Patrick Hyland, pretty much dominated him for for the entire fight. Hyland went farther than what I thought he would into the fight. What was your take on Warrington?
That was a good workmanlike effort from Warrington. He actually looked a little better than I thought he would. I mean, I've seen him before. He's a high work rate kind of guy. Doesn't really possess much power, but he just comes at you. He keeps coming and coming, and that's what he did against Hyland, and he happened to be the quicker of the two. Again, had the higher work rate, landed some clean, crisp shots. I think dropped him a total of 3 times before getting him out of there in the 9th round. Good effort from Warrington, and I suspect him being at 126, he may get a shot at Lee Selby next.
Well, I know that's what he wants. That's what Selby seems to want. Do you think Warrington has a chance against Selby?
I think he has a chance. I mean, Selby's a boxer type, who likes to kind of pick his shots, but I wouldn't favor Warrington winning any more than 4 or 5 rounds. Selby, to me, I think he's a little bit too slick. He looks a bit bigger, in my opinion. And Selby, to me, looks like he is world-class. Even though Warrington had a good showing against Hyland, I still don't see him as a top guy in that division. So I think Selby takes it if they do happen to fight, but we'll have to see and find out. It's a big domestic showdown.
Well, and Hyland's fought, guys. Didn't he fight Gary Russell not too long ago?
Yeah, he looked terrible, though.
Yeah, and that did not last very long. So, I mean, the fact that it took Warrington that long to get rid of him would cause me some concern also.
Yeah, it took Russell 2 or 3 rounds.
Yeah, and it was quick, and it was over quick. That brings us to Mikey Garcia, first fight in a couple of years. Fought Elio Rojas, knocked him out in the 5th round. What was your take on Garcia?
I thought it was a good comeback fight. He looked like he had a little cobwebs to shake. I could see that he was trying to get his timing down, but once he started getting it going, he looked pretty good. And to Rojas' credit, he was better than expected. I mean, I had never seen the guy fight before, but the commentators had talked about how he had a long amateur background, was a standout in the Dominican Republic, and you could see that he kind of knew his way around the ring, his sense of timing, distance. They were all pretty good. And he clipped Mikey Garcia a number of times with a straight right hand. But Garcia, he ended up figuring him out, ended up establishing the jab, getting his distance down, and he's just one of the best technical fighters in the game. And I'm really excited to see his career progress. And, we'll see where he goes from here. Yeah,
and my guess is it's going to progress relatively quick just because they picked a guy that wasn't a stiff in Rojas for his first comeback fight.
Yeah, and Garcia as well said that he may move down to 130. He implied that he could lose the weight. Personally, as a fan, I would love to see that because Vasil Lomachenko is down there. I mean, Salido, Lomachenko, Vargas, lots of good fights down there, and Lomachenko Garcia, that's mouth-watering to me.
Yeah, that might be the best of all those fights.
Yeah, it may. That's a little super fight. I'd love to see it happen. I hope it does. I mean, unfortunately, Lomachenko's with Top Rank, and I know Garcia, isn't too fond of them at the moment, but still, hopefully it could come off. That'd be a great fight.
All right, that brings us to Adonis Stevenson, knocked out 4 rounds, Thomas Williams. What was your take there? The thing that blows my mind, before we get to your take, is the fact that Adonis Stevenson knocks out Thomas Williams in 4 rounds, and all over social media you'll see that Kovalev's obviously afraid of Stevenson.
Yeah, I know. It seems like boxing fans are an emotional bunch. Whenever they see a good performance by one guy, when speaking of Kovalev, when he struggled to get, I don't know. Boxing fans are just an emotional bunch. It sways with the boxing wind. Whenever one has a good performance, they think they're damn near unbeatable. When they have a bad performance, this guy can beat him, this guy can beat him. In my opinion, Stevenson's a good fighter. Clearly he showed that again. I was pretty surprised by how good his inside game was, though. I mean, he chose to mix it up a little bit more than he typically does, and we were all delighted to see that. Williams, to his credit, he came, tried to slug it out, kind of like he did against Rodriguez, and he had the right idea in certain places too. He was trying to counter Stevenson's left. He could just never quite get there. And on the inside, he just was overmatched and overpowered against Stevenson. But honestly, I thought it might have been over in the first round when Stevenson dropped him, but he ended up hanging in there. He had a game performance, showed a little bit of heart, but Stevenson was just too much and overpowered him and got him out of there with that nice left hand.
Well, hopefully this would set up Stevenson fighting a winner of Ward and Kovalev, maybe early next year or middle of next year.
Yeah, wouldn't that be delightful? I mean, again, we see what happens when they pair the best with the best. Like we got with Thurman and Porter, and like we get with the fight coming up. We're about to talk about with Cruz and Frampton. I mean, we can only hope that it happens. Stevenson acts as if he wants it. Whether he does.
He's always acted like he wants it, though.
Right, but yeah, whether he does in practice is an entirely different thing. So, hopefully, get it. But with boxing, you just never know.
Well, you talked about it a little bit. Carl Frampton wins a majority decision over Leo Santa Cruz last night. Great fight. Has to be up for Fight of the Year at the Barclays. I mean, it's the second fight they've had there. I think they had Thurman Porter not too long ago, which was also a Fight of the Year candidate. You think the scorecards were in line with what you saw?
I think the 117-111 card was I think it was pushing it. That I would think if you're scoring 117-111 for Frampton, you're giving all of the close ones to him. The 116, I can deal with that one. I mean, a lot of the people that I was following on social media, a lot of them had it 7-5, stretching it to 8-4. So I'm not really mad at that card, but the right guy won. Frampton, he looked improved over and maybe he did have to drain himself to make 122 because his stamina looked better. His power looked a little bit better. He just looked like a more versatile guy than the guy who fought Quigg. He looked really, really good. I was thoroughly impressed with his performance. I mean, he didn't let Santa Cruz push him back. I mean, that's what a lot of us thought he may do. We thought he may get, drowned by Santa Cruz's work rates. But I think one of the vital points in the fight came when Frampton clipped him and almost dropped him.
Yeah.
And from then on there, you could see that Santa Cruz had to give him some respect. And not only that, Frampton was setting traps. He was countering beautifully. He just looked faster, sharper, crisper. And I ended up scoring at 7-5 for Frampton. But it was a close fight, great fight. And I think Frampton is probably the number one guy at 126 now.
Yeah, I had it 116-112, Frampton. I thought Frampton won the fight in the first 6 rounds.
Yeah. Yeah, he did.
Santa Cruz let him do too much work early, I think.
Yeah, and not only that, his father in the corner was telling him to box. And I can't explain why. I think Frampton probably would have been, Santa Cruz his best bet would have probably been jumping all over Frampton early. But instead, he tried to stay on the outside, try to use his jab.
He said before the fight that his dad gave him the game plan. It was to box him for the first 6 rounds and then pressure him after that because he'd get tired.
Right, and it didn't work.
So actually, his dad cost him the fight.
Yeah, I think what happened was they watched the same fight we did against Quigg, and they were like, okay, well, he's going to tire out near the end. But no, Frampton seemed to carry the weight really, really well. He was strong the entire way through. And Santa Cruz is a guy who's well known for his stamina. He's averaging like 85 punches a round. I think it's 84, but no big deal there. He's averaging 85 punches a round, and Frampton stuck with him, the whole way through. And not only that, I think it's not only a Fight of the Year contender, but I think Carl Frampton. I think some people are ignoring this, but Carl Frampton should be up for Fighter of the Year after this. He beat Scott Quigg, a top 5 guy in his division, moves up, and then beats another top 5 guy at 126.
And my favorite part of seeing that fight was the reaction of Barry McGuigan after he won the fight. Because when I was younger, I remember watching Wide World of Sports, I think 1985, where he beat Eusebio Pedrosa. His dad sings Danny Boy, bringing him in the ring. McGuigan was always one of my favorite fighters. And you could just see how much that meant to him. And, I mean, the thing that has really impressed me, I mean, the United Kingdom has a ton of champions now. If you remember, it used to be back in the day, one of them would get ranked fairly high. They'd bring them over here. They'd get knocked out in the second or third round. They'd go back home. But what do you think is the biggest thing to attribute the success of the boxers from over there?
Oh, in my opinion, I think no doubt it's the British government and their investment in the amateurs. That's why you see the United Kingdom. They did so well in the last Olympics. The Irish, they have two top amateurs. So I think it's the British government and their investment in the game itself. I mean, that's part of the reason why I think we're lacking. But the government actually sponsors boxing in those countries, so they're developing them early. They're making sure they're getting top-notch training, and they're making sure they're competitive. And then when they come into the pro ranks, they're well off. And I think Frampton beating Santa Cruz shows that, these British guys are clearly serious.
So basically what you're telling me is the government is why they're doing it. So over here, basically, if we were to stick some oil wells under some boxing rings, we could probably get something done.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, we would probably go back to I wouldn't say we'd go back to the old days where we're dominating as thoroughly, because obviously I think, the Eastern European guys are really good. And plus, I just think there's more foreign involvement for us to dominate.
Well, I think you've got a lot better trainers around the world now, too, which has a lot to do with it.
Exactly. I agree. They're investing in the trainers. I mean, any Joe Schmo can be a boxing trainer in the United States of America. But in fact, I follow Scottish boxing, and people don't really, follow Scottish boxing much. But I've noticed that they have classes where they actually invite trainers from former Soviet countries into their gym, and their boxers learn a little bit about their style. I've seen them do that with the Eastern Russian style. I think they also had some Slovakian guy or something who came in. So it looks like they're diversifying, their learning curves. So they're not just they're just not copying one style. They're learning from various ones.
So do you think Frampton will stay at this weight, maybe fight a Gary Russell or a Lee Selby, or do you think he moves up?
I think Frampton, I think if the post-fight interview indicates anything, I think if reason tells me anything, I would say that Lee Selby is probably at the top of his list. I mean,
yeah, that's the biggest money fight for him.
Yeah, Warrington may want that fight, but in terms of what the fans want, Frampton versus Selby is the biggest sell there. And I think it makes too much sense for it not to be. I mean, he's a new champion. He'll be allowed his voluntary defense. He can defend against anybody that he wants. Selby just makes too much sense, and I think it's a winnable fight for Frampton. He looks the better of the two. I think
Frampton. I would pick Frampton without hesitation right now.
Yeah, I would love to see Frampton take on Selby, beat him, and then after that, I would love to see him fight Gary Russell Jr. I think that's a really good matchup.
Yeah, that's a great fight.
Yeah, that's something that has
contrasting styles. I mean, I don't think you can get a much better fight than that.
Nope, make it happen.
Except for Mikey Garcia and Vasily Lomachenko. Maybe they could just put them both on a pay-per-view card.
Yeah, jot down notes. If there are any promoters listening to this podcast, jot down notes, okay?
Yeah, we want to see that. I'll pay for that. I would. Yeah. I would pay for that.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
No doubt,
I would
in a heartbeat. Now, I won't pay for the crap they've been giving me. I think this may be the first year of my life since I had, cable or satellite TV with pay-per-view access, which would have been probably back to the mid-'90s. First time in my life where I have not paid for one fight this year.
Well, and unless there's any interest in paying for Kovalev Ward if it comes off?
Well, Kovalev Ward I may pay for. Yeah.
Okay, so that may change. All right.
Yeah, it could change. You get Kovalev Ward, I would pay to see that. But, let's face it, the last one, Victor Postal or whatever the hell his name is against Terrence Crawford, I didn't even go watch the illegal feed on the Internet.
Yeah. Well,
sometimes I like to do that just because it feels like I'm breaking the law.
Well, and look at this. People give a lot of shit to Al Heyman, but look what we've seen. We saw Thurman Porter for free. We saw Frampton-Santa Cruz on Showtime.
Yeah.
These people are expecting us to pay $50, $60, $70 for a pay-per-view. It's not even stacked. When we're getting matchups like this, we're getting fights like this. The best.
Yeah, and the one thing I can give Don King is this: back in the day, his undercards were usually packed.
Yeah. Well, at least
and then it went downhill
right.
with Bob Arum because he'd bring who was that girl that was in Playboy, Mia St. John?
Uh-huh.
She'd fight on the card, Butterbean would fight on the card, and I'm like, God. I mean, sure, Mia St. John looked all right for a female athlete, but nothing I'd want to see on a pay-per-view card. I want to actually watch a good boxing match.
Yep, exactly. I mean,
maybe if they would have had Mia St. John fight Butterbean, and then she'd have been topless, he'd have been topless, and it would have been like a lesbian boxing match.
Yeah, that would have been a dream match.
I don't know. Am I allowed to say lesbian anymore? I'm not sure. That's probably not political.
Yeah. I don't know what you're allowed to say. It seems like the terms change all the time. But, I mean, yeah, I'm thinking of the best fights we've gotten this year, and you think of Thurman Porter, you think of Kamagai, Soto Carras, you think of Frampton-Santa Cruz. I mean, these aren't pay-per-view matches. I can't remember the last time there was a Fight of the Year candidate on a pay-per-view card. Maybe I'm mistaken.
Well, let's face it, though. How many guys are really pay-per-view worthy anymore?
Oh, none.
I mean, you get a guy like Golovkin, but there's nobody on the other side to fight him that makes him pay-per-view. The same thing with Kovalev, the same thing for Ward unless they fight each other. I mean, really, there's nobody there. Anthony Joshua's not there yet, and the question is, would he ever get there just because he's British? I mean, Lennox Lewis was never a big sell in this country. It was when you put Holyfield or Tyson against him.
Yeah, well, and I heard that I haven't seen any solid numbers yet, but I've heard rumors that Postal versus Crawford only did like 70,000 pay-per-view buys, which is
I thought you were just going to say 70, actually.
Nah, it's 70. Well, yeah, 70.
My guess would have been 12, but...
well, you're way low. Yeah, but
not that much.
No, but I mean, the best fights are more easily available than pay-per-view. So, I don't know, guys like Bob Arum, they need to take note because Bob Arum or Al Heyman is doing the right thing and giving us, the best versus the best at little to no cost.
Well, I remember when Bob Arum actually gave us Francois Botha against Shannon Briggs on pay-per-view.
What?
Yeah. Right. I still got the video recording of it. I can't let you see it because it has to be for my own home use. It says at the start of the show. But actually, it was a great fight, too. It ended up in a draw, I believe.
Interesting.
But anytime I can watch two guys that aren't very good fight, I'm in for it because it'll be a good fight at least.
Oh, yeah.
But, all right, that'll bring us to our, I guess we'll call it a big fight this week. It's a big fight because you got Andre Ward, one of the best fighters pound for pound over the last decade, against Alexander Brand. From looking at Brand's record, to me, the only thing that really stood out is he did have a split decision loss to Badou Jack, but that was in 2012. Any chance Brand can pull the upset here and ruin our Ward Kovalev?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I don't even think he'll be as competitive as Chilimbo was with Kovalev. I saw some people of Brand, and he's a good fighter, but Ward is a special fighter. I mean, he's a pound-for-pound type guy. I don't see Brand doing anything that'll prevent this matchup from happening. So, I mean, we'll all watch with intent and hope that Ward has a solid performance and gets past him and then makes the fight we all want to see.
Well, what I would like to see, which would make this an even bigger fight, is Ward to just go out and get rid of this guy in a couple rounds.
Yeah, wouldn't that be nice? I would like to see that just because Ward hasn't. Can't even remember when the last time he had done that was. He always seems pretty content, boxing to a safe decision. I mean, he wasn't always a stick and move guy like others. He wasn't as safety conscious as others, but. Yeah, it would be really nice to see Ward just go out and try to get it and prove a point. But I just don't see that happening.
Yeah. All right. You got anything else we can talk about? Kind of a short show this week.
It is kind of a short show, isn't it? I mean, there's a lot of there's a lot of fights on, and I happen to catch some of them, but there wasn't a lot of intrigue. I mean, Paulie Malignaggi fought Preisser, saw some highlights of that.
Yeah, did you get to see that fight? I didn't get to see that one yet.
No, I saw some highlights. I mean, Malignaggi, of course, he looks faded, but, he had enough in the tank to outbox Preisser. I mean, I saw Luke Campbell, the British prospect. He was a gold medalist. He's a guy I've been following pretty closely. He got dropped in the second round against Mendez, but he looked pretty good once he was a little tight in the beginning, and then he started loosening up a little bit, letting the left hand go, letting the jab go, and he outboxed him to a clear decision. But yeah, aside from that, there really wasn't a whole lot going on, and I haven't heard a whole lot of news either.
Neither have I. I mean, my thing is this. I brought up Barry McGuigan. Should Barry McGuigan be in the Hall of Fame?
Well, I've got the tough one because his win over Pedrosa was very good, but then he goes and gets upset. I think he only had one title defense, if I'm not mistaken, and then he lost.
Yeah,
to
he beat
Cruz.
The guy from North Carolina. What the heck was his name? What was his name? Bernard Taylor.
Yes. Yeah, and that was a solid win. But then he goes and loses to Stevie Cruz, who was a good fighter, undoubtedly. But then I think Stevie Cruz loses in his first or second title defense against Antonio Esparagosa.
Well, the thing I remember about about McGuigan with the Stevie Cruz fight was I don't think he came over and gave himself enough time to acclimate. And I think it was one of those nights where it was like 100 degrees in the ring. They fought, I think, the first or second fight on that closed circuit broadcast. So it was the sun's beating down on him. I just don't think he was ready for the circumstances of the fight.
Yeah, to me it looked like a plethora of a number of things. It looked like not only was the heat troublesome for him, but it also looked as if Stevie Cruz just was on his best game. I mean, sometimes, whenever you're defending your title, the guy you're typically fighting is going to be his absolute best, and Cruz looked to be that. But in terms of whether or not he should be in the Hall of Fame, I struggle with it sometimes because, when you look at baseball, the very best are getting in there. But then you have people who say, well, it's the Hall of Fame, it's not the Hall of Talent. And you look at guys like Arturo Gatti, and I can see why a guy like Gatti would be in. I mean, was he a great fighter? Absolutely not. But he gave fans tons and tons of entertainment, and that's not something that other fighters have done. And I think with Barry McGuigan, he was I think people may call him a transcendent figure where he said something like 19 million people watched his fight against Pedrosa, and I've heard that he was kind of a unifying force between Northern Ireland and
the Catholics and the Protestants.
Right, exactly. So, I mean, in terms of resume, no, he doesn't belong.
And I think he had two title defenses because I think he beat Danilo Cabrera also.
Okay, that could be right.
I remember all those were televised over here, and I think after the Cruz loss, he did have a decent win against Nicky Perez. And then he ended up, I think his career ended, he got knocked out by Jim McDonald, who was a solid fighter. The best win before he won the title I remember seeing, because the first time I think I saw him, he beat Felipe Orozco. I think it was the first time he was on national television over here. And I think after that, I think he beat Juan Laporte right before he won the title, but I'm not sure.
Yes, no, I'm pretty sure you're right about that.
And I think he beat Jose Caba, too, who was a title contender during the early 80s.
Yeah, and Laporte was a good fighter, but he was one of those really tough fighters, but he was also one of those guys who, almost never beat the best.
And you never knew what you were going to get from him.
Right, exactly. I mean, so again, Barry McGuigan, his resume is a bit lacking in my opinion, but, we can see that figures are put in not only because of what they have on the resume, but because of the kind of impact that they create. I mean, Rocky, Sylvester Stallone is it. So it's in terms of
do you think Sylvester Stallone should not be in?
I haven't thought much about it, but I understand why he is in. I can see both sides of the coin there. I mean, Sylvester Stallone, whenever I talk to people, and I see this on some of the boxing groups that I'm in, some of the boxing forums, that a lot of people started to become a fan after the movie. I mean, he certainly had an impact on the sport.
No, I think he had a huge impact on the sport with that movie. I mean, because you were getting towards the end of Ali. He kind of bridged the gap between Ali and Sugar Ray Leonard. And, I mean, let's face it, the movie is still iconic, all of them.
Yeah,
I mean, even the Creed movie did really good at the box office, and that's, 40 years after the first one.
Right, yeah. I mean, there are a lot of, and the movie one of the movies itself it's on television quite a bit. Even still, the old Rockies, they're available on Netflix.
Yeah, and if you look at the guys we've interviewed, I mean, I've interviewed Vinny Pazienza. One of his biggest things to push him into being a boxer was the Rocky movie. Peter McNeely, one of the big things was the Rocky movie. All these guys that are in their, mid-40s to mid-50s that were, boxers in the 70s or in the 80s and 90s, a lot of them fell in love with the movie Rocky and made them want to be a boxer.
See? So, there's the positive argument for it. I mean, but of course a lot of people would be upset because, he's just an actor, but hey, he had an impact on the sport, and that's worth noting.
Yeah, but the boxing statue in Philadelphia should be of Joe Frazier.
Yes, yep, I agree.
Later, maybe they can put, Rocky behind him or something, but, I mean, Joe Frazier is the most iconic figure in Philadelphia boxing history, I think.
Oh, yeah. No, that's saying quite a bit because Philadelphia has been one of the American teams that's consistently produced excellent fighters. But yeah, put them next to him, put them behind him, whatever. I mean, they're both iconic figures. But yeah, I saw Joe Frazier's gym. I think it's closed down now, but I saw it before it was. Wish I would have got to go inside.
Why didn't you go inside?
I don't know. We were just in North Philly. Didn't look like the best of areas. And I was with my father, and he didn't really feel like getting out. It was unfortunate, but he was a big Frazier fan. He never liked Ali. He was always on Frazier's side, and was ecstatic after he beat him in the first fight.
Yeah, and if everybody goes to thegruelingtruth.net, you can go hit the boxing tab, the Boxing Legends podcast tab, and you can actually hear us interview Marvis Frazier. I don't think you were with me yet on that one, but I think it was me and Joe Rodriguez who interviewed Marvis a little over a year ago. Really interesting interviews, so make sure you check that out. Make sure you check out all of our articles. I know we got Jeremiah writes boxing articles. I write boxing articles. Also, you can check out all of our other sports from the NFL to CFL, college football, baseball. You can check all the podcasts out on iHeart, iTunes, TuneIn, Spreaker, Stitcher, Google Music. Anywhere you get a podcast, you'll get The Grueling Truth. So, any final words, Jeremiah, or are we ready to roll out of here and get ready for next week?
No, ready to roll out, I guess. Nothing exciting, no news.
Well, no news is good news, I guess. That's what my mom used to tell me. But so, guys, make sure you check us out every week on Inside Boxing Weekly. You can also check us out on YouTube. So, for Jeremiah Preisser, I'm Mike Goodpaster. You've been listening to The Grueling Truth, where the legends speak.